Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about. And this evening we're going to talk about what's important on February 13th, 2014. My voice is going before we even start. And I guess this evening are Jimmie Moglia, who's an old-time friend of mine. He's also a producer here at TVC TV, and he has a wealth of learning and experience and stuff that you would be fascinated with, but we've only got 1 hour this evening, so we'll just limit you to a little comment now and then.
I will be as silent as required.
And Sekai Edwards is my primary guest this evening, and she's a surprise so far before we even start talking to her about who she is. And how are you feeling right now, Sekai?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Very good, and I'm nervous and you're doing well. How's Jimmy?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah. So I found Sekai through Jamie Partridge, who's been on the show before. He's a postal worker guy and activist, progressive, and he's been delightful. And I was going to have him on this evening, but he was busy, so he substituted Sekai for him, and I'm sure you're going to outdo him. And as you know, the show goes in two major parts. The first part is the bio section, where I talk to my guests about who they are personally, so you have an idea where they're coming from, where they talk about what's important in the second half of the show. So, Jimmy, you've done this 1,000 times, I think. So we'll start with Sekai, and you have seen a little bit of a couple of the shows, so you know where we're going to go, kind of. I don't ask any questions that are going to embarrass you or get you mad at me. I'm pretty good at that. I'm a retired clinical psychologist, among other things, so I kind of know what I'm doing, but I'm human, and occasionally I will goof up, and you can smack me if I get out of hand to me.
Come on.
come on. All right, and I got some standard stock questions that I use to prompt myself with. And I always have one or two unexpected questions for my guests to see how they handle unexpected questions. And I can ask you one now, or we can ask it later on and surprise you. How would you have me do it?
It's up to you.
It's up to me. All right. Okay. If I would ask your best friend, who is Sekai? What would your best friend say? If we do it in the first person, Sekai is what?
Very stressed out.
You're the calm as can be. Yeah. All right. So shall we continue on?
Sure.
And when and where were you born?
I was born in Portland, Oregon, and I was born in 1998.
And that makes you how old?
I'm 15 years old.
You can't be 15.
Yes.
You look more sophisticated than that. It's unbelievable. And I got your permission to say to you during the show that you remind me of one of my granddaughters because we kind of same kind of complexion. Yeah. Only you're cuter than I am. And how, if I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, you can say I don't want to answer that, or just ignore me, or whatever, you know. How about your racial or cultural heritage? Do you mention that at all? Would that be a value?
Yeah. I'm African American. Come from two African American parents. Of course, like almost anybody who lives in this country, but especially people of African American heritage. I have European American, Native American.
You sound like me.
Cuban, yes. Everything is inside of me.
I arbitrarily decided as about one-third, and one-third, red, white, and black, but not necessarily in that order. For me, that summarizes it, because I have daughters. I have 5 daughters, you know. And one is heavy duty into this kind of research, and she drives me nuts. About every month she has some new information that confounds me even more than I am confused about my racial mixture. So it's simplified for me: red, white, and black, culturally and racially, which is a construct anyhow. But so much for that. Religious preference, do you have one, or is that a fair question?
I would have to say it changes very often.
Good. Means you're still looking. Keep looking, yes. Where are you today? Are you an agnostic, an atheist, a fundamentalist, a Tea Partier, or what?
Have you ever seen Life of Pi?
Yes.
I would have to say that much as he does, I believe in very many different cultures and ideals and gods and
Don't change.
yes.
Wonderful. If you haven't seen The Life of Pi, you've got to see that life. I've seen it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we know a bit about your education, and you're a sophomore in high school.
Yes.
That's impossible. I will stop being surprised with how young you are. What do you do in your retirement life? No, you're not retired yet. What do you do besides going to school? You're involved in any hobbies or any other activities?
Yeah, I'm on the Portland Student Union.
Portland Student Union?
Yes, the co-founder of the Jefferson High School Student Union. I'm on the Jefferson Dancers 2, which is a dance company at Jefferson. I'm on the mock trial team at my school, and I'm sophomore class president.
Do you have time to eat or sleep?
No.
How is it you're so involved in so many things like that?
There are many things that need to be changed, and so I think it's hard not to be involved in so many things.
Where did you get that kind of thinking?
I think I grew up in a society that likes to pretend that many things are okay, and a big part of the reason I do things is because my education is failing me. It's failing kids all around me, and so as I'm growing up, I don't like to sit and just watch it. I don't like to be someone who sits and listens to it and watches it happen and doesn't do anything about it, and so I'm very compelled to work on education, and it's a passion of mine.
Yes,
Could I
Jimmie?
interrupt you? You say that the school failed you, but you are extremely articulate. You speak very well, which is I'm not saying that it's an extraordinary thing, but it's for a girl of 15. I've seen people of double the age who don't speak as well as you do and have been educated. So could you tell us how the school is failing you?
That'll be the second half of the show. You can see a brief comment about it now. We're doing the basic bio stuff.
I'm
now.
sorry.
No problem. You can answer it.
Well, I think education is not only in the schools. So I've been educated very well by my parents and my community and other things, but as far as an education that I'm getting in my school, it's not doing what it could be for me.
I see. Good answer.
Yeah. A lot of these questions don't apply to you. You don't have any children or grandchildren. You don't have a partner, a boyfriend or girlfriend or anything like that. And memberships you mentioned already. And can you think of any persons from the past or alive today that you admire particularly? For me, it's Jesus and Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King. Any names come to mind to you?
Angela Davis is,
Angela Davis?
yeah, one of my biggest inspirations.
Yeah, she got snowed out here in Portland.
I know. I was going to go watch her, but
so was I.
Yes.
We'll meet again over there when she's rescheduled. Yeah. Okay. Shall we move over to Jimmie and get a brief bio on him before we go into the what's important nowadays?
Your show is very well attended and popular. So since I've been here so many times, probably by whatever osmosis, they may know exactly. So I'll be very short.
Sure, of course.
Very short.
Yes, of course.
I was born in Italy. I grew up in a borderline area, so I grew up partly speaking French and partly speaking Italian. I was educated there, or whatever, non-educated there, depending on how you believe schools work. And after my degree, which in engineering, I was offered a job here in the United States, which I took. And after a few years of corporate life, I became disenchanted with it. So I left and I started my own company, computer company, from which I retired in 2010, yes, 2010, to do all sorts of other things, including writing. So I have 2 books published. One is, I will repeat it now, I feel I'm like a record, but it's called Your Daily Shakespeare, an arsenal of verbal weapons to drive your friends into action and your enemies into despair.
Say that again a little slower.
An arsenal of verbal weapons to drive your friends into action and your enemies into despair. The trailing of which was that, I think it's anecdotal but true, somebody happened to be a senator of the European Parliament, bought my book and got my book anyway, and seeing my extraction, I was proposed that I write the same thing, the same format for Dante's Divine Comedy, which I did.
Dante's Divine Comedy.
So this was published by the Tuscan government last year, and now I have a third book which is at the printer in Italy, and it's somewhat of a historical critique of the United States. Critique necessary. I don't want to offend any nationalists, but it's
I'm looking forward to that.
That is on the horizon, on the near horizon. Other than that, I cultivate my website, which is yourdailysshakespeare.com. And what's important today? February 13th, February 14th. So if anybody had the time, the inclination, the patience, or the drive to go to my website, they would find a blog on some Shakespearean take on St. Valentine. And I think I'll stop here because you're the guest. Sekai is the guest. So.
I got to ask you a question. Give us Shakespeare's take on St. Valentine's Day.
Well, sure. There are so many.
Well, choose one for us, if you will.
I need a lady. She's too young for it. Being thy slave, what should I do but tend upon the hours and times of your desire? I have no special things to do, but them only serves to your require. What else? Oh yeah, and if you go to dinner, with your Valentine, and then don't forget to tell the waiter, no garlic or onions, please, because we must utter sweet breath. That's from Midsummer Night's Dream, and I could continue, but.
You see, that's what's going to happen to you when you live that many years, because I can tell with your intellect and your mind, you will be as brilliant as my friend Jimmie is.
I hope she would be much better, and I wish you so.
Thank you, Jimmie. Now, you came in tonight to the studio with somebody with you, some tall fella.
My father.
Your father. What was his name?
Lenny Edwards.
Do you like him?
I do.
No hesitation there. Lenny is in the control room. Hi, Lenny. Yeah. Okay, so let's start off, before we take a break anyhow, with the major part of this show. I have some notes from you that would prompt me about what we'll talk about. Or you... What do I do with it? And your activities in your high school now?
Say that again.
Your activities?
Well, my biggest thing is the student union that I'm a part of. The Portland Student Union comes together. It's student-led, so there's no adult advisors, which is very different from a lot of the other organizations that are, put together by students. So it's completely student-led. And we tackle issues. A big issue that was tackled last year was the opt-out campaign, which was trying to get kids to not take their standardized test. And this year, our biggest struggle that we're working on right now is the contract that the teachers are trying to renew with the Portland Public Schools district.
Not take the standardized tests. Why is that?
Well, standardized testing, one of the things, standardized testing is, our district pays companies to buy these standardized tests from them. So right now we're taking a test called Oaks testing. Next year we'll be taking one called Common Core. So they're costing millions and millions of dollars from districts to buy, and so it's just helping to privatize the public educational system.
Privatize.
And so where before basically what's happening is we're using our public funding to pay corporations that aren't necessarily using teachers, They aren't having people that are in the classrooms to give these tests, and we're buying them from them. They're constantly failing minorities, people that come from lower economic standpoints, and so the tests are flawed and they're biased. So we have a huge problem with us being tested, and also our teachers being graded and evaluated on how I perform on a standardized test.
Is that all because of privatizing standardized testing? Is that what's wrong with privatizing standardized testing? You said a little about it so far.
Well, schools is a public schools need to remain public, so it needs to be coming from donations and taxpayer dollars, and that money needs to be going to our teachers, our buildings, our programs. It doesn't need to be going into corporations. And so you see public education that was fought for, that made our country amazing, that is the reason that we moved so far and became, one of the greatest nations in the world, was because of our public educational system. And what you see happening is more charter schools, more standardized testing, and more ways that for-profit organizations are getting their way into the public sector.
What's wrong with charter schools?
Charter schools, the teachers aren't under the same contract, so they're not in unions. And I'm as well as the Portland Student Union, very pro-union. The teachers don't have to be qualified. A lot of the money that goes to these other things, so all the money that's going to standardized testing, the money that's going to charter schools, if this money was put back into the public schools, so instead of having 3 alternative charter schools and giving millions and millions to these companies to produce tests, if you're putting that into the actual high school, you're going to have a better learning environment, more teachers. Students are going to get more one-on-one time. They're going to be able to understand what they're learning better. And that's where the money needs to be put, not into people making money and putting it into their own pockets.
How are we going to make that happen? People like you?
Well, one of the things is the opt-out campaign. So it's happening all around the nation. It's not just in Oregon. It's Seattle had a very successful opt-out campaign. I think Chicago is doing a lot of it there. So what we want is kids to not take their test. So today in my English class, we are taking our OAKS test, which is our form of standardized testing. And so I opted out, which meant I decided I'm not taking this test. And my thing is I refuse to support a corporation, because we pay for every head every person that takes the test, the corporation gets more money.
Sure.
So I refuse to take my test, and instead what I can do is take a work sample, which is different in that it's still standardized. But what it is you're going to be showing more of your work. You're not just going to be clicking a bubble. It's actually writing down your ideas, going through the steps in math, where instead on these standardized tests, they give you a problem and then they give you A, B, and C, and they give you bubbles, and that's how it's graded. But work samples, it actually shows what you know. And let's say I mess up on one step in math. Well, they're going to be able to see that and see where I really am. It's going to help me more as a student, my teachers more, and the district to know where I am as a student and what we need, other than us just clicking buttons and funding this privatization.
And that's an accepted alternative for the system.
It is. It's one that is not publicized by the administration or the district, but you can opt out. You can get a form where you sign it, your parents sign it, you turn it in, and you will get a work sample as an alternative to taking your standardized OAKS test.
Why isn't that system, that alternative, more publicized?
If under 95% of the school, if 95% of the school takes the test, we get scored as a school. But if less than 95% of the school doesn't take the test, then that means that our school isn't going to get scored, and it's just going to go in as needs improvement. Last year, only 66% of Jefferson High School students met or exceeded the benchmark in all standardized tests. Lincoln High School, which is pretty much known as the premier high school in Portland Public Schools. 95% of their kids did not take their Oaks test, which means that they got a score of needs improvement. So there are schools that are opting out of these tests, and they're getting needs improvement, and their school is still continuing. The administration doesn't want kids to know about it. One, because they like to say that we need to take the Oaks test to graduate, which isn't true. You can take work samples and graduate from there. And also because that's what they're told by the district, and that's what the district is told by, you know, private companies. And I mean, it's driven off of for-profit.
You've really done your homework in learning about what you're talking about. I wonder how young were you when you were aware that you had this sort of political awareness of social justice and the kind of things you're talking about now? My God, 15 years old. Were you in elementary school with these kinds of thoughts?
Well, I think the first protest I went to, I think I was 8 years old. And I still have my picket sign, and it says, "Bring the troops home." It's very funny. The handwriting is very awful on it, and an 8-year-old trying to write that. When I was in the 3rd grade, I think I started a group to recycle cans in our school to get money for our library. So it's encoded in my DNA, I think.
Wow. I see Jimmie's got some thoughts going on in his head. Any questions for our guest?
I'm speechless because everything that you said about it is, for what it's worth, coincides with my thoughts about it. For one thing, I think that the standardized test, as you say, A, B, C, don't show your reasoning. So, and it reminds me of the type of the test that it gives, and the 2 mice. You know, you put the mice, and if they move a certain lever, then the mice is more intelligent than the other mouse. And so to transfer that concept to education seems to me a paradox, and that's been a euphemism. So I think it's a wonderful thing to do that you are abstaining, or you're organizing the abstention from this. I think if the concept were to be extended, for example, if more people were not to vote, eventually there would be some change, because otherwise how can you promote change? So same idea. So that's what I. And how much, just out of curiosity, how much of the on your work sample, I'm using your words. I'm not familiar with the procedure or with this. If you were to judge the evaluation of your alternative test, how much emphasis is given on what work you've done, and how much on answering questions which are embodied in the alternative test?
I would have to say that I think what's in a work sample is closer to what you're learning in school. On that note, I also don't believe that I should be taught to a test. So what Portland Public Schools is trying to implement next year, Common Core, and the test is the SBAC, would be us, like the teachers are told this, and this is what you need to teach your students to. And I think that's failing me in a way that education should be a beautiful experience.
I agree.
It should be where teachers are coming up with different curriculum. There are guidelines, yes, that they do need to follow, but there are different things that different paths they should go down to, and they shouldn't be teaching to a test that somebody in Atlanta created that, you know, is in business and not in the education world.
Sure, no, I couldn't agree with you more. But it's part of the pattern. You defund a public corporation, so when they don't have any more funds, then you can say they are failing, so let's give it to the private people who do it for profit and so forth. So it's a closed circle.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is going on all across the country.
Yeah. So, and the opt-out campaign, the student union was very big in it last year. It's happening all over the country. Seattle was very successful in their opt-out campaign. But there's Diane Ravitch wrote a very good book called The Reign of Error, which I'm reading right now, which is about how standardized testing can look very good. And the way it is marketed is very marketed to a group of people that it's going to fail. So it's put out there like, this is a test everybody can pass. We just want to see where these students are. We want to know what we need to do. But really, it's put out there so corporations can be making money, so students can be failing. Public education came along, and Jim Crow laws were taken away. So now kids have to have an equal education, but then what you see is popping up is AP and IB programs. So just to give it another step up for the majority, white schools where you have more funding from parents, and the public education isn't really public anymore. So what you see in standardized testing, what you see in programs going to certain schools, you see that the richest, the whitest schools are having, there's just another thing, an extra step up on that diploma that puts them somewhere where someone who's going to a majority African American school, Latino, any place that's not the richest, whitest of America aren't getting.
So the motivation of the educational system, instead of educating children, is making money for the corporations?
Yes, we do live in a country that is built off of capitalism. So even when you try to build things in the public sector, capitalism will find a way to make money off of it, because that is the system that we have decided we are going to live on.
Who's the we you're talking about?
America, the government.
Would you, from what you know about Western education systems and European systems and their countries and their cultures, how do they compare to the American educational system as far as success in preparing citizens for life?
Finland has one of the most amazing educational systems. I think you see in more countries that have socialism and communism and aren't built off of the back of capitalism, you see public sectors thriving more, where there is better public education, better health care, people that aren't hungry. And that is not universal to say to every country. But you see it more than you see in countries that are running off of capitalism, which is a system that will always fail. It will always break down, which is something that I believe. And I think that public sectors will never thrive in a capitalist system.
Is there such a thing as a benevolent capitalism? Here I was talking about monopoly capitalism or crony capitalism, the kind of capitalism that's practiced in our country, and I'm on my soapbox now, rather than a more responsible, looking for social justice primarily, and preparing citizens for life rather than preparing citizens to be instruments in the money-making process that's really run by corporations.
Well, I believe that. I believe racism is built off of the back of capitalism. I think that sexism, homophobia, everything that is awful that we look to is built off of the back of capitalism. The other thing, especially in America, is the idea of the American dream. The idea that we can all work up and one day we will be the top of the top is what makes people that are at the bottom allow the people at the top to do the things that they do, because they believe that at one point in their life they will be able to get there, that they will be able to make enough money, they will climb the ladder, they will go from working class to middle class. And I think that's why we have the biggest issue in the public sector, is because, well, one day I'll be up there and I don't want to pay that much taxes because one day I could be the 1%.
Well, isn't there enough information available now that suggests, if it were available for the general populace, they would see that the American dream is no longer operable as an idea, and they would then demand something different?
The information is available, yes. However, I don't believe that people are seeking that information, because it's something that is so hardwired into most Americans' minds that a lot of people watch their parents, say, I want you to, you're going to do better than me, you're going to grow up, you're going to have a job, a house, a family, 3 kids and a dog. It's like, that is what everybody aspired to be. And so people think that that's what's happening. That's, they turn on their TV and almost everybody in it is a middle-class family. There's been many studies shown that most people that would say, I think I'm in the middle class, or what they think the the distribution of wealth looks like in America is very different than what it is. Many people that are working class and living under the poverty line believe that they're in the middle class because the richest have told us that we are, so that we will be comfortable where we are. And that's what it is. It's the elite making us feel like we are comfortable where we are, and so we should stay there and be happy with what we have.
On the political continuum,
The only thing I will add, benevolent capitalism is an oxymoron. Either you can be benevolent or you can be a capitalist, but you cannot be both.
politically speaking, where are you on the political continuum, Jimmie? Are you left, right, or center, or off the edge?
I do not define myself, because on most issues, on issues like this one, it is not a question of being right or left. It's a question of being following common sense or not. The beautiful demonstration that Sekai has given about the schools, speaks by itself. You have articulated, but it speaks by itself. It doesn't make any sense, to detract public funds that the taxpayer pays in order to fund companies to do what the school should do anyway. Mm-hmm. And so you define that whether it's left or right, but I said you probably left. But the idea is common sense. My idea is common sense more than left or right.
Is common sense more likely to be on the left or on the right?
Depending on how you read, it's certainly on the left today. But there are things that it's difficult to divide. The problem today, even for the left, is that the moment you start away from common sense, you come up with 100,000 or thousands of interpretation of what should be done. And at that point, they become ideologies or ideologies within the ideology. And so there is no uniformity of intent, except very somewhat abstract good things to do. So this confusion of ideologies is what, in my opinion, does not contribute to clarify matters.
So then perhaps which ideology presents a better opportunity for the citizenry to have a decent life and experiencing being alive?
Of course, but if it is necessary to target, to label that right or left, let's do it. For me, the right is George Bush in attacking Iraq. That's a criminal. So, but that is, if we define that as being the right, yes. But otherwise, it should be done on a case-by-case basis, on an item-by-item basis, on a problem-by-problem basis, which would be education, the military, the finance, and so forth.
I am going to stop myself because I will keep going at you since we've got a point of contention, it seems to me. And then I'll hear your response, and then we'll go back to our guest here. You talked about labeling twice. And for me, I need to have some idea of where I'm coming from for myself and for you. And that's why these questions, I think, are useful, not necessarily labeling a person. And for me, I am a democratic socialist. I'm for the left. I'm a radical progressive leftist. Those can be called labels, but for me they're not labels. There's some way of describing so I can see who I am, where I'm coming from. And we can go back to you now, and you can put your water down. Are you, where were you on the political continuum? Are you going to do like Jimmie and fight with me about that?
Well, a year ago, had you asked me, I would have said I believed in capitalism and I was a Democrat. And now, I don't believe in capitalism. So I don't believe with any party right now as far as Democrat or Republican or conservative or liberal. I believe in socialism, and I believe in distributing wealth. I believe in the common good. So where that falls on a scale, I don't know. And I do understand where sometimes it is hard to label, because I might say I believe in this, but then something that group does might not necessarily mean what I believe in. So I believe in socialism, and I believe in equality. And that's, I mean, where that falls on a scale, I do not know, but that is what I believe in.
And you said it very, very well. Yes, Jimmie.
See, there are some paradoxes built in the words. Democracy, the only type of democracy possible is the one where the politician, where the rulers are drawn out by lottery. And this is like an odd idea, but it's been documented. It was done for a short while in Athens, in Greece. They had the democracy, meaning the rulers, being drawn out by lottery.
Demos.
However, once that was established, it lasted a short time, because once the system was established, the people who had been elected decided it was better to have their son follow them. So, but technically, the idea of a lottery for positions of power is not completely out of whack, is not completely mad. So and this is part of the problem of democracy. We know that it's a shamble democracy now because the elections count for nothing. And so, yet we all talk about democracy as if it were something that we live in. And it is, by definition, it's impossible. So you can only approximate it. And the approximation now is so far from what it could be that it's almost has lost sense to use the term.
So let's pause here for a minute, because we're so involved in this discussion. We're past the break time. Let's take a break anyhow in there, Mr. E. Sure. Okay, we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is we've decided to talk about tonight. And we're talking about what's important on this date, February 13th, 2014, the educational system here in Portland, and related issues and topics. And Jimmie Moglia, my friend and guest, who's also a producer at TVC TV, is a brilliant person in his own right, and we were having a very good time. And it was so exciting for me, I lost track of taking a break, but we did take a break, and now we're back. And I wanted to talk a little more about the teachers' strike, the pending teachers' strike. Will you talk to us about that some now?
Yeah, so on February 6th, the teachers voted to strike. They've been having contract negotiations with the district since early June.
What teachers?
The Portland Public Schools Teachers Union.
Okay.
They voted to strike after going back and forth at the negotiation table. The district doesn't want to put things in the contract that will help students, that will help teachers, and that will better my learning environment, but instead take things away. On the 20th of February, so this month, the teachers will strike if a contract is not agreed upon.
What are some of the things more specifically that the teachers union wants that they don't have now?
They want to ask for a class size cap. So right now, I go to Jefferson High School. There's approximately 450 kids there.
Jefferson High School?
Yes. In some of the classes, there's 40 kids. So that's ridiculous since it's such a small high school. 40 to 50 kids in one science class.
Unreal.
That's impossible to learn in. It's impossible for one teacher to be able to give students the individual time they need.
How did it get to be so outlandish?
It's a higher class, so there's only one teacher who teaches it, and so there's many kids who are qualified to be taking the class. Excuse me.
Sure.
And so because there's no language in the current contract, the teacher can't say, I will not take this many kids in the class. So what the teachers union is asking for is right here, no more than like 25 kids in my class.
And that's still a whole bunch.
And that's still a lot of kids. 15 is what I'd like to see in every class, and that would change education. We would have more, discussions, and it would be a really amazing learning experience. Excuse me. Different healthcare benefits they're trying to take away from teachers. We need them to raise the salary for teachers to a living wage. Definitely, the media is portraying the teachers as out to get more money, but it's a living wage that they need. The amount of money that a teacher really takes out of their pocket to put back in their underfunded classroom is really, really outstanding, especially concerning that they are not making a lot of money. Also, one of the things some of the language that the district is proposing in these contracts is being able to judge a teacher on what a kid scores on their standardized test, like we were talking about earlier in the year. So if I were to take my 10th grade reading and I failed it, they could look at my teacher and think, well, they're failing as a teacher. Well, really, it could be a failure from that kindergarten class, from the underfunding, especially for kids that aren't passing the test, which is majority African American kids, second language kids, people who impoverish children. They're not passing these tests.
Their ability to learn is certainly influenced by their conditions at home.
Exactly. So some of these kids are not going home, are not doing extracurricular activities because they have to go pick up their 6-year-old sister, take her somewhere, and then go to work, while their parent is working 3 or 4 jobs because they're making minimum wage, and that's not something, as we all know, you can live on.
And that's really going on nowadays.
That is, and so that's something that happens to a lot of kids at Jefferson. And so what we don't want is my teachers to be affected by the test, because really what it is it's the district who is closing down cluster schools, especially in Jefferson High School, which has the highest population of African American students, clumping them together. You get 40 kids in a kindergarten classroom with one teacher. I don't know if anybody's worked with a 5-year-old before, but it's hard enough to be one person with 2 5-year-olds and try to get them to sit down and read, much less 40 kids.
I'm embarrassed. I didn't know it was that bad. Now, you don't have precise figures, I don't think, about a typical class size in the European countries in the educational system compared, like the science class you're talking about here in the school here in Portland. But typical class size, or are there 50 or 40 students in a class?
No, never been like that. However, this is when I was going to school. We should go there again. But the problem is that it is worldwide. This particular, the influence of this privatization and defunding of school is worldwide. And even in places like Italy, and I must say even France, they do it gradually, so the people do not realize it. But they have converted their school curriculum to be a carbon copy of the United States.
Really?
Yes, to the point even university, and we're not talking about just high school, but of course in high school they have taken away subjects which were, in my opinion, very important in high school, for at least when I grew up. For example, they are talking about taking away history of art, which for a place like Italy, for example, which is based on art, take away history from our schools is stupid, because most people go to Italy not to see the Italians, but to see the art.
Yes.
And so this is just an example. But I'm talking about the export and the globalization of nonsense, or rather the globalization of class structure, of the system that eventually will turn into the imposition of a class structure.
Is this because of the system being socialistic or capitalistic? Is there a relationship between the two?
Well, no, I would say it would take a long time even to give a marginal explanation.
Yes.
But very, very briefly, the European Union has turned out as being the semaphore or the receiving end of the United States. So the United States sends a signal to the European Union. I'm exaggerating, but to make it short, the European Union says, let's do this in all the countries that belong to the European Union, and so this is reverberated.
That's the influence of the empire, the American empire.
Absolutely. You can see it on a school level. You can see on the fact that today, as you know, yesterday, whatever it was, the European Union, in unison, has decided not to grant Edward Snowden asylum in any of the European countries. And that's extraordinary if you think about it, because they should be independent. They are independent from the United States.
Edward Snowden, huh?
Yeah, yes, it was in Russia. So the European Union, with a decree, as no country belonging to the European Union can give asylum to Edward Snowden.
Is this
So I went out of theme, I'm finishing here.
Yes.
But as an example of the reverberation of a certain set of ideas that will end up being globalized. And who doesn't subscribe to it gets either slaughtered or hammered or both.
Whoa, and you won't define yourself as being a progressive or a liberal or a leftist.
Well, this is the progress of ideas.
Jimmie, I know who you are. I hear you. Yes. You were going to say something? Interrupt this fight?
Well, so back to the teachers' strike.
Please.
They do, so we're hoping that they can reach an agreement before the strike. We don't want to see kids out of school. We don't want to see kids who are depending on their school for survival as far as food, a warm place, a place to escape gang violence, and different things. We want them to be able, to be in school.
Of course.
So it's hard when we want our teachers to strike because we want them to continue to fight for our education. It's also hard remembering that we also use our school as a means of survival. So right now we have the student union wants kids to stand on the picket line with their teachers. So as a teacher strike, we don't want them to cross the picket line and go into the school where you won't be learning anything. You'll probably be warehoused in a gym with the whole school. Substitutes who have no idea what you're learning, the teachers aren't going to leave them any curriculum. And so we won't actually be learning. We're encouraging them to come out, stand on the picket line, families come out, anybody who can come out to come support the teachers. And they'll be picketing at every school because they will all be on strike to say that we will fight until we get this contract. If it means we're not getting paid, if it means we can't educate our kids, which is what we want to do, we will do it because we need the funding. The other thing is the district has said that they constantly, it's always, we don't have the money, we don't have the money. About a month ago, it came out that the district had a surplus in money.
A surplus?
A surplus. They had a lot of money that they said they were saving for another time. Well, this is a time where we need it. Another time is no more important than, the kids that need that education right now. So we are saying you have the money to do it. We want 175 more teachers hired on top of giving the contracts that what we need. And so the student union right now is standing with the teachers union in support of them with the strike, with the contract negotiations.
The student union, do you have a leader in the student union?
We have no leaders in the student union, so it's the best democracy I have ever seen in that we have no leaders and we all come together. There are reps from different schools that come together, but I actually be going to a General Assembly meeting after this, and we're going to be talking about what our strategies as students will be to support our teachers and to be there for our teachers.
And when will the vote be?
The vote to strike?
Yeah.
The vote already happened, so it happened on February 6th. So they have voted to strike, and if they do strike, if a contract is not reached in time, it will happen on February 20th.
Oh, yeah. So what do you think will be the outcome? Are the teachers' union going to win, or are they going to lose?
I believe that the teachers' union will win. I think the district is playing hardball right now, but I also think that they don't understand how much backing the teachers have. So the 7 or 8 board members do not have anywhere near the backing of the 3,000 teachers that are a part of the union, from parents and students and community.
So has the teachers union been characterized as some sort of a socialist experiment or challenge or revolt? Or?
I think they've been shown as wanting too much, as hungry for more money, that the district is doing everything that they can, and they are they are trying to support the students, and they know what's best for the students, as if teachers who are there with us every day do not. So I think the victims in this are the teachers, are the students, and the district is trying to make it look like they are the victims, and that there's just this crazy mob of teachers who want, more money and more health care and more this and this and this.
Do you have any idea what the economic class is who are on the board of education?
Yes, they're all, every single member is white. Only one has ever been a teacher, Steve Buell, who's very supportive of the teachers. But they're all, business leaders, and some of them have had work in education, but it's not a group of people who are sitting down with the students every day, which is just ridiculous. So
Jimmie, say something because time's running out. Excuse me.
No, isn't it true that, from what we heard on the media, or at least that they had a supervisor or superintendent of education for Oregon that was paid a huge amount of money. He only was here 50% of the time, and then he left and was substituted by someone else that he was, again, a huge amount of money, and with no results whatsoever.
yeah, that's and there's also a woman who the district has hired who's paid $15,000 every month. Her contract was renewed. They hired her her job is to break union. That is what her job is. So she was hired between June and August. It's now February, and they're paying her $15,000 every month to break a union, which you're seeing all over the world and the country is trying to break unions.
Oh, we need more time. Time is going by so fast, and I want to save a minute or so for us to have some closing comment for our viewers about what's going on here. Let's save the last minute or two for Sekai. You want to say something? Will you say something,
Excuse me,
to the viewers? Where's your camera? Over there?
Oh, I think it's been very interesting. You have raised some good points that I'm sure that your viewers wouldn't know about, and so let's see what happens. Let's hope that they get the teachers. Certainly, I didn't realize about the 40 pupils in the school. But again, also it's obvious to say it. The media doesn't tell you. The media gives you this very in subliminal ways, gives you this impression that the teachers want too much and they want too much money. Whereas by the looks of it, that's not the case. Nor they ever speak about the standardized test anyway. So we've learned about it.
Sekai, you left a minute for her. Will you talk to the viewers about I think that's your camera. What's important for them to know about whatever we're talking about this evening?
Well, it's important for them to know that anybody who doesn't necessarily have a child who's in the educational system, this is just as much your fight as it is mine. In the best ways, we are the future of this nation, so we need an education. We need support from other people. We won't be able to do it alone. Teachers do go on strike on the 20th. On the 20th, at 3 p.m. at Pioneer Square, there will be a rally and a protest against the board, and we would like everybody to come out. If you have kids in the educational system, if you've been a part of it, even if you never have, we would love to see everybody out here in support, because like I said, it's everybody's fight, not just the students and not just the teachers.
Pioneer Courthouse Square, Portland's living room, it's called. That's where we gather to put our voices out there and talk about what's important. I am just so charmed and fascinated with this show this evening and with you. And indeed, I want to hear what you're doing now 3 years or 5 years or 10 years from now, even if we've got to call your dad. Thank you for producing such a wonderful guest and a wonderful human being, sir. And we better start winding down because we've got about 2.5 minutes left. Final thought?
I'm trying to think about it. Let's hope. Hope is swift and flies with swallows' wings. Kings it makes gods, and meaner creatures kings.
With that, we'd perhaps better have some closing comments, public service announcements. Mr. E, our director, and our wonderful crew, thank you. Okay, to get my local broadcast schedule, go to my website, www.donbaham.com, and click on Present Day Activities for my local broadcast schedule. To watch my shows on the web, go to my website again and click on Favorite Links. And Don Baham YouTube has my shows too. And the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, without the ACLU, our civil liberties would be further down the tube than they really are. Go to www.aclu.org and get my shows broadcast by other stations that you're watching from other parts of the country. Go to pegmedia.org and follow the instructions on how to get your local station broadcast my shows. And to end corporate personhood, we've got to end corporate personhood because corporations are running our country now, and we should take back our country. Go to movetoamend.org so we can amend the Constitution to say that corporations are not persons and money is not speech. Thanks for watching, and remember KFC, and not that KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable. To you too, and you too, and especially you, Sekai, and to you. Thanks again for watching, and good morning, good afternoon, good night.